How do you feel when you get dressed every day? On 9 times out of 10, a very negative feeling.
One day I woke up in the middle of 2015 and realized just because a life looks good on paper doesn't mean it feels good in the heart. I started to think, what was going wrong?
I came to New York, I worked in fashion, did a little bit of PR, worked for a brand directly, and nothing ever felt like it was the right fit.
I have a long history of non-suicidal self-injury, multiple stints in rehab, jail, lifelong depression. And I knew if I didn't change my situation that I was disconnected from quick, I was liable to go down a deep, dark path.
What does anxious feel to you?
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hi, Molly.
And welcome to Visionaries in Progress. Woo-hoo! Chris Schembra here with my partner Molly, broadcasting live from beautiful New York City. We're so excited to have you on a dual conversation episode. This is my first time actually being on a podcast with my partner Molly. I've been running my company for the last 9 years, 11 months, and 2 days. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary on July 15th, 2025. And Molly has been there since about the 6-month mark. So it's going to be a great joy to have the opportunity to connect with her. And we're glad you're along for the ride. Miss Molly.
Hi, guys. My name's Molly Sovran, and I'm the founder of Luxe Wardrobe Consulting, which is a styling and consulting business helping men and women re-fall in love with their wardrobe and remember who they are.
Sounds like such an inspiring and wonderful, wonderful cause. Thank you for doing this work.
Thank you for acknowledging the work that I do. And your work is rooted in human connection. When did you first realize that people needed more than just a product or a service, but a sense of truly being seen? So
our journey with this business, with this work around human connection begins in the year 2015. You know, if you looked at my life back then, it looked pretty good on paper. I had a good job, I had nice friends, nice people said nice things about me. It was all fine and dandy. Until one day I woke up in the middle of 2015 and realized just because a life looks good on paper doesn't mean it feels good in the heart. And maybe if you're watching this, you felt that kind of disconnect from time to time. And my kind of that moment for me was actually when I had just come back from Italy to New York City after producing a Broadway play over in Rome, Italy. And that producing of a Broadway play in Rome was supposed to, fuel and fill my entire heart, my entire soul. I thought that success and fulfillment, or the success and achievement I would find in Rome, would truly equal fulfillment. But when I got back home to New York City and I found myself, before I met you, in my 350 square foot studio apartment, completely alone, wondering why that success in Italy didn't fuel my soul, I started to think, what was going wrong? I realized that disconnect, lonely, unfulfilled, disconnected, insecure. And so I thought long and hard. I knew I had to do something about the way I was feeling. I have a long history of non-suicidal self-injury, multiple stints in rehab, jail, lifelong depression. And I knew if I didn't change my situation that I was disconnected from quick, I was liable to go down a deep, dark path. And so I thought, what was it about my time in Italy that changed my perspective on living? Right? Was it how those Italians walked down the street, how they honored history, how they had a love of language, art, and architecture? No, it's how they ate their food with their friends, amongst community. I said, that's it. I got to bring that flavor of human connection I felt in Rome, Italy, back to New York City. And so to answer your question of when did I realize that this is what people needed, July 15th, 2015. I'd invented a little pasta sauce on my 2-burner stove in my studio apartment. Thought the pasta sauce was pretty good. So I decided to host a dinner party. Feed it to my friends to see if it's good or not. And on July 15th, 2015, we dined. Right? We worked together to create the meal. We had a shared group experience at 7:47 p.m. Now the name of my cult. At 7:47 p.m., we asked a very powerful question. If you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, that you've never thought to thank, who would that be? You've seen it. We went around the dinner table and shared the most amazing stories I'd ever seen before in my life. Yeah. And I realized that at 7:47 p.m. on July 15, 2015, that was it. The way they shared the stories, the way they liked my pasta sauce, the way a few people cried, this is what I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to. And I realized that at that very first dinner, that people are yearning for connection. We live in a world where 51% of the American workforce reports feeling lonely on a consistent basis. Loneliness is equivalent to the reduction of lifespan of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And I realized that need people had, and we've been dedicating, our entire life to it ever since.
It sounds like not only are you making people feel seen, but those people helped make you feel seen.
I would say that in a time where I was questioning which path to take in life, at a time when I was questioning how I can make a bigger impact, at a time when I was maybe running away from the problems of my past, these 15 people showed up around the dinner table and made me feel whole, made me feel like I belonged. What about you? Your work is rooted in human connection.
Yeah.
When did you first realize that people need a sense of being truly seen?
I'm a huge believer in doing work for others that you deep down need yourself. And so I've had a long history of not feeling like I'm seen, heard, admired, understood. I come from a really big family. I have a lot of brothers and sisters. And so just naturally, it's easy to get lost in the sauce. Also, like you growing up, I, made a lot of noise. I made a lot of mistakes to try and get attention from others, but that, didn't necessarily make me feel seen. And it definitely didn't create human connection or people around me. If anything, it was more drama than it was authentic realness. And the only time I ever felt that I didn't need to be Molly the microphone or to be the loudest one in the room was when I was playing dress up and escaping and taking the time to really connect with what I want, which is a very rare thing for me. So I think there have been moments throughout my life that have been like gentle reminders like, hey, you should, work in this world, in this environment. I came to New York, I worked in fashion, did a little bit of PR, worked for a brand directly, and nothing ever felt like it was the right fit. But I knew there was something in that creative world that rang true to my soul. And I've just through the years realized that as I've gotten older and spent more time with myself and playing dress up with myself and getting creative with clothing and wardrobe and a sense of personality, I realized that I was making myself feel seen, and it was creating connection with other people in the process. So I would say 2 years ago when I officially started my business was a way to give others the work I knew I needed myself, get back to who we are, remember what we loved doing when we were kids, which was dream worlds, exploring, playing pretend, playing dress up, and let's, do the work to re-fall in love with who we are, using our clothes as a tool, as the most intimate form of self-expression.
I feel like the world needs a lot of that right now. Remember who we truly are, without the filters, without the fads, without the facades. You're helping people remember deep down who they are. Yeah. Was there a spark moment? Did someone push you over the edge? Did someone help you hold a mirror and say, Molly, you're meant to be doing this work?
One of the things I struggle most with in life is people have probably been giving me those glimmers, but it's easy to ignore or push it away or go on the 9-to-5 track and not listen to those people saying, you should do something with this. I would say you're probably someone who's been in my life for the last 9.5 years telling me, you should go down this path or try this. And it was always, no, I'm not capable. I don't have the historical training. But if I really have to pinpoint one specific moment, it was in college. A close friend at the time essentially looked at me and said, you're forcing yourself into this very business mindset of a, advertising degree and needing to be this certain type of person. And I don't think I've ever met anyone more creative. And I don't understand why you don't dive deep into that. And so I've been on a journey for the last 10, 13 years trying to remember that creative side of me. And I think if I didn't have that person in my life at that time, I feel like my life would have gone in a very different direction, because shortly after that conversation, I ended up in New York City. I started working for free as a PR intern in fashion. 6 months later, got my first job working for a brand, and have been kind of on this rocket ship ever since. But sometimes it takes the unlikeliest of people in your life to say, "Can I ask a question? Why are you remembering who you are?"
Does that person have a name?
Yeah, Jamie.
Have you thanked that person?
I have not.
Talk to Jamie right now through the camera. What would you say?
Just say thank you, Jamie, for seeing me authentically. It's very rare to have that gift, and I'm grateful for you for taking the time to see me.
Jamie, thanks for all you've done. So in your work, right, helping people remember who they are, helping people fall back in love with their wardrobe, help people realize they've already got more than they need and they don't need to go out and buy new things. They just need to look at it in a different way. That requires a lot of deep work. That requires a lot of soul searching. That requires you to ask a lot of questions and uncover a lot of things. How do you create that base layer of psychological safety and trust?
Yeah.
A meaningful moment of human connection with that one-on-one client that you've maybe never even met before, but you're going into their home or you're hopping on a call with them and you're changing the way they look at their whole life. How do you build that base layer of trust and rapport?
Yeah, I would say I meet people where they are. So instead of forcing my own agenda or ideals or aesthetics onto the people I'm working with, I take the time to ask really good questions, hold space, meet them with vulnerability, and meet them where they are. I do think, being from such a big family, that I have an ability to really narrow in on people and take the time to ask them questions that they don't feel like they have time to ever ask themselves. You know, a lot of what we do is a form of self-care. So the people that are inquiring to work with me have already, I think, done the base layer of soul searching to finally admit that they're tired of chasing trends and looking like everyone else and really want to match outside what they're feeling inside. But honestly, just being able to stay present and ask good questions and meet them vulnerably and meet with them where they are.
What's your favorite question for helping someone remember?
Honestly, it's more of just asking them questions around, you know, how do you feel when you get dressed every day? Just as simple as that. Most people will say stressed, anxious, insecure, rushed, annoyed. If I started collecting data like you do on words, it would be on 9 times out of 10 a very negative feeling. And instead of saying, okay, great, we can fix that, I go into, well, what's going on? What does anxious feel to you? What does your morning routine look like? What does your closet space feel like? And I think just the simple act of asking them how they feel when they get dressed allows them to step into that psyche of, oh, wow, I really am disconnected.
What age do you think is the last time someone felt really comfortable in their closet?
Probably when they were younger, because there was more play.
Helping people remember it's all right to play.
It's all right to take risks. It's all right to try color. I also think the biggest problem people have is we just have way too much, each of us. And so how can you, I said I needed to do the work. How can you create and play when it's the volume in and of itself is so overwhelming?
I think a lot of the listeners can relate to a lot of what you just said. You know, a lot of you have a dream of entrepreneurship. Sometimes we come up against roadblocks in our dream of entrepreneurship, but just the idea of remembering what it's like to play, remembering what it's like to feel good, remember what it's like to show up into the world, you know, ready to tackle it. Some of us become stagnant. Some of those things, like our wardrobe, when we're starting a business and we invest time and effort in growing our company and we forget about what it's like to show up the way we want to show up in the world. So I think a lot of the people who are watching this can relate to what you're doing.
To piggyback off of that as well, I've had the pleasure of being around your dinner table where I also, and a lot of people have the opportunity to show up authentically and as themselves around the table. So for you, you do work with one-on-one clients, but what does meaningful connection look like when it's in a room full of strangers?
Going back to our very first dinner party on July 15th, 2015, we invited 15 friends that didn't know each other over to our home for a bowl of pasta sauce. And so if you look at what that means, you've got a group of people that don't know each other. They're complete unknown. And then at 7:47 p.m., I pause all dinner table conversation and I ask a vulnerable question. If you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, who would that be? And then we go around the dinner table answering it. These strangers feel a little bit of a comfort to share, the comfort that they might not feel if I'm asking this question in a room full of people who have known each other their entire lives. And so there's a certain anonymity of them being strangers to each other that works. Now, there's a sociological study that backs this up called the strength of weak ties. It was commissioned in 1973 at Stanford University by a man named Mark Granovetter. And he found that vital information is best passed around social network through a series of weak, distant, or dormant ties. Let's define that. A close tie is someone maybe you're related to, or a series of best friends, or colleagues that are on your team. Now, there's a lot of pressure on those relationships. It's hard to go to those relationships and really, really ask for what you need. It's scary. If you need a job, it's really hard going to a brother and saying, bro, can you hire me? It's too much pressure. And so what Mark Granovetter proved is that when we go to the weak ties, these strangers, dormant ties, people we barely know, loose acquaintances, and we ask for what we need, they're more willing to provide because there's less pressure on the relationship. This is someone who you've met at your neighbor's backyard barbecue. This is a team member who sits way across the organization on a different team. This is someone you met 10 years ago. You might be connected to on LinkedIn, but you haven't talked to in forever. And so the importance is we live in a relationship-based world where human connection is what separates us from AI. Yes, you can go to close colleagues and close ties and close family members to ask for what you need, but you on this entrepreneurial journey, as you're trying to persevere through everything, reconnect with the people you haven't talked to in a while. Reach out to strangers to ask for help. You will be surprised at how much people want to actually help and provide. And so, we realized that around the dinner table. And, now we help the world's biggest companies realize when you get people to connect across different teams, you end up increasing creativity, innovation, job promotion, and career growth within the organization. And it originated from a room full of strangers.
You mentioned that you ask that same question every dinner. Have you always asked that question? Or is this just one that generated the most connection between a bunch of strangers because it was just vulnerable enough?
So at our original dinners, we tried a series of questions in the weeks. The way it worked is we asked the gratitude question, at 7:47 p.m. on July 15, 2015. And we loved the dinner table so much that we just kept hosting dinner parties. Next week, new people, same gratitude question. Next week, new people, same pasta sauce. Next week, new people every time. We would go on to host 54 dinners in those first 52 weeks, feeding 808 people for free in our home. We tried a couple different questions along the way, but nothing ever worked as well as just creating a space for people to get to know each other around the topic of gratitude. And so, yes, we've built entire question frameworks ever since. And now we teach companies and solopreneurs how to ask better questions, step into the power of inquiry. But it all started from that one gratitude question.
What does it actually take behind the scenes to create spaces where people feel safe, inspired, and transformed?
On Sunday, January 24th, 2016, I went snow sledding, my buddy Dave. And after snow sledding, David built a wonderful $500 million a year home security business in Indianapolis, Indiana. And we were up in his apartment after snow sledding. And at the time, I just left my theater career. I was about 25 dinners deep. I had won awards in, different things. I could go down a couple different career paths. I had options. He asked me a series of questions that day after snow sledding that really woke me up. He asked me, what am I passionate about that I'm doing right now? He asked me, of what I'm doing right now, what does the world actually need? He asked me, what thing that I'm doing right now completely lights up the skills that I was meant to bring to this world? And the fourth thing that he asked me was, of the things you're doing right now, what can you make really good money at? And the answer to all four of those questions was the dinner table. He asked me those four questions, and I answered the dinner table every time. And he looked at me and he said, Chris, I think you found your answer of what to do next in life. The dinner table. Human connection. There's an old Russian proverb, you can't chase two rabbits at the same time, but both get away. Focus equals growth. He said, forget about the rest. Just focus on the dinners. And I listened. I threw out every other option I had in life, the plan Bs, the maybes, the what ifs, and I went all in with my true heart and soul on the dinner table, with conviction, with focus, with clarity. And I think to answer your question, what does it take behind the scenes to create really safe space for others? You have to do your part as an entrepreneur and a business owner to be so in with your whole heart and soul, believing in the message that you're bringing to the world, that your people have no choice but to respect it and honor it and follow it. And whatever you're asking them to do, they oblige. And when you've got a message on your heart that you need to bring to the world, you focus with ever-loving clarity and conviction on it, and it makes others feel safe due to your confidence and conviction. And we've been doing that for 10 years. And once you build a brand around focus, never wavering, never sacrificing on your morals, people show up already having built a little bit of psychological safety and trust in the process. And it compounds over time.
Guaranteed to get the same experience from you.
Guaranteed to get the same experience. What about you?
For me, it's a little bit opposite. It's doing just a little bit every day. I'm a very all or nothing person. And so in order for me to, create the safe space to go into the intimacy of someone's home, someone's bedroom, someone's closet, protecting my peace in a sense that I just did a little bit every day to finesse, refine, take risks, try new things. I think the beauty of being a very young business, only 2 years now, and only working with me as the sole stylist and consultant, I have an opportunity to customize and iterate and work very uniquely with each client. And for someone who's all or nothing, it could be very easy for me to hyper-focus on wanting to offer one specific thing or having one specific process that I do that I don't waver from. But that also causes burnout and stress and overwhelm. And so I just told myself in order to build for the long term and in order to show up fully present and fully honest, I'm, working with these clients and doing just a little bit every day to make sure that every new client I sign on, it's a better, more refined process the next time. So there's still that focus. There's still, growing and having power, knowing the ideals of what I'm doing are the same with every client. It's the different principles. I'm still meeting with them vulnerably the same in the same heart, but being able to customize and do just like a little bit every day. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think is important to protect your peace so that you have the emotional capacity to show up, honestly, for whoever you're working with.
You put so much intention behind what you're building and how you serve people. You put your heart and soul into your work and it shows up. I can see it with your late night hours. I can see it with the stress and anxiety. On the off chance, not that it occurs much, but on the off chance where the connection you're trying to make with someone just isn't happening.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a defense against intimacy they have, or maybe they're not giving you the full deck of cards and their answers How do you move through that?
It's a great question and a very difficult one to answer because it's easy to get discouraged if someone isn't seeing what you see, and not because you want to necessarily work with them, but you know that there's an opportunity to have impact, and you can see that by them almost, and I know you've experienced this yourself, by them rejecting or not understanding what you're trying to offer, that in and of itself is the answer that they need to work through that with you. I will say I met with a lot of ego and insecurity. And for some people are afraid to get a lot closer to who they are because of what they might find. And it's easy to say, oh, I don't need that, or, oh, I'm okay. Or I'm not stressed. I'm not actually that stressed when I get dressed. And that avoidance and immediate push signals to me that they need it. They might not just be ready. And so what I like to do is, have a lot of grace and gratitude for even the opportunity to explore a conversation and working together, and just gently, remind them that I'm here. So it might be that follow on Instagram. It might be sending them helpful wardrobe recommendations and tips, and, maybe giving them their color analysis as a thank you for even taking a phone call with me. Because those are the people, my mother always said, those who are the most unloving need love the most, actually. And so those clients that come through, but, aren't ready to fully lean in, those are the ones that I'll sometimes, do extra for, or give them, a parting gift, and just keep a close eye on, because I know that when they come back, they'll probably be the most engaged client I have. So love on them hard.
Speaking of your mother, you've had the opportunity to style your mother for Good Morning America, and work with her to get ready for her nonprofit events that serve the local Detroit community and all the great work that she does for our world. What's it been like to, bring a service back to your family that might have been something that you ran away from when you were raised by your family?
I would say I'm finally feeling validated and seen in ways that I've always wanted as a kid. So by doing this work, I'm also healing my inner child. But just being validated and seen when my sister out in Los Angeles asks for my help to style for an event, it's someone that I would assume already has everything figured out. But there's that intimacy of, hey, can you help me with this? I think I'm 90% there, would love your help on the last 10%. Getting phone calls from family asking for help is like the best feeling in the world, because they are truly finally seeing me for the gifts that I can bring. And I know I mentioned earlier a moment where you also experience when people aren't necessarily buying what you're selling. How do you move through that when the connection just isn't firing?
Rejection. Every solopreneur watching this, you know all about it. When we turned our pasta sauce, our little dinners, into a company, and what I mean by company is, it's not like we sell our pasta sauce. We help the world's largest companies build cultures of human connection. Right? This is about employee engagement and team building and mindset work and all those kind of good things. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful, 9-year, 11-month, and 2-day journey working with 357 of the world's largest companies. Microsoft, Google, IBM, Dell, United States government, you name it, we've worked with them. And every step of the way, every sale we've made has felt like an uphill battle. Right? When you have a vision and you're on your solopreneur journey, you have a vision of what truth you want to bring to the world, what problem you want to solve for the world. And so you quit your 9-to-5 to pursue solving that problem for our world. Well, just because you see that truth doesn't mean other people are going to see the same truth you see. You might be 10 years ahead of the market. You might be 5 years ahead of the market. And if you're that far ahead of the market, you're going to face a lot of resistance. right? If you bring a product or a service to market that is timed with the market, it might be an easier sell, but you'll have more competition. If you're 10 years ahead of the market, it's going to be a harder sell. There's nobody else in that space. You haven't educated the client of why they need what you do, right? So that's what we're oftentimes up against in the terms of, human connection in the workplace thing. And every step of the way, every resistance that I face offers me a chance to shift my mindset. Not from why is this happening to me, but to what is this doing for me? And every chance that I face resistance is a learning opportunity to serve better, to sell better, to understand the needs of my clients better. I seek those out. And when they happen, I do 5 things. I take a moment of pause to ask myself, is this resistance against me or is it just against them? Number 2, I ask that client or prospect some really great questions. Questions that begin with what or how. Questions that help them dream up a better future. Questions that uncover the problem that I need to solve for them and demonstrate my value to be able to solve it. Number 3, I take a step back and I savor what's working and I shift what's not. What I mean by that is just because you're facing adversity doesn't mean you have to throw the whole cat or the whole bag out the window. Take a step back to appreciate what's going well in your process, but then shift what's broken in the process through that moment of adversity. And the 4th thing I do is I take action. I come back to that moment of friction or adversity with some kind of empathetic way of serving, some kind of bold idea, some type of collaborative message to let them know we're in this together. And whatever new strategy that I'm going to implement based on what I'm learning through that adversity, I start before I'm ready. Right, my buddy Ben Wright, founder of the 4th fastest growing company in the country, 39,000% 3-year growth, raised a $400 million Series B, taught me press go at 90%. Otherwise, you risk spending 90% of your time on the final 10%. So take action before you're ready. And the 5th thing I do at every moment of adversity is I stop back to appreciate and remind myself that I'm on a good journey, even in the face of this adversity. Right? Every step of the way that I fall into a hole, I ask myself 3 questions. What inside of me is helping me get through this? Can I be grateful to that enduring personal resilience? Number 2, who around me is helping me get through this? Can I be grateful to them for their support? And number 3, what is it about this moment of adversity that we're facing right now that will actually provide a positive benefit in the long run that I can be grateful for? Right? So I pause, I ask questions, I savor and shift, I take action, I appreciate. If you're keenly paying attention to what I just said, what does that spell? Pause, ask, savor and shift, take action, appreciate. P-A-S-T-A. Pasta. The next time you find yourself in a moment of adversity, practice the pasta framework. I'll send it to you after this. It'll be in the show notes below for when you need it.
And so when you look back at your journey, you mentioned giving gratitude for it in this exact moment. What moment of connection really stands out as something you'll never forget?
Well, I think January 29, 2016. I was out at a restaurant with my buddy Graham Gintz. I was sitting at Rosemary's. Sitting at the bar at Rosemary's, which is ironically now I'm really good, friends with the founder, Carlos Suarez. Shout out League of Gentlemen. And I'm sitting there with Graham, and I get a text from my 3rd cousin who, says to me, hey, I got a gal you should meet. Very long story short, I show up at the Standard Hotel, and there's my cousin Nicole. There's your sister Mary Kate, and there's you. And we sat down that night, and we had a really good time. We made such a great moment of connection that we haven't stopped connecting since.
That's so nice.
So nice. What about you?
For me, I would say it's more little moments. I don't think there's one that stands out. I would say every time I see a client's body language shift, when you know they're feeling good, there's such an intimacy between me and them. And it's that light bulb is clicking and things are working, that smile on their face. The mirror selfie comes out, like that lights up my soul. And I know that they're feeling connected to themselves. So I'm very grateful that I have those moments a lot with my clients, but being able to do it repeatedly and getting those messages every now and then when I'm with them is just reminds me that we're doing the good work, and it's, doing a little bit every day, one client at a time, helping people reconnect, I think just helps me stay focused on the mission.
Wow, 5 questions went by quick.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Feel good.
Yeah?
Yeah. How do you feel?
Yeah, pretty good. This is great. What was your favorite part about this?
I don't know. Getting to talk next to you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. Hope you're all having a phenomenal day on Earth. Remember, folks, it's your world. Go explore. We'll see you next episode.